the new boogeyman. Let's use the term. Politics of fear, the politics of paranoia. So now, post-1991 and post-2011, the global international communist conspiracy has been wrapped up and packaged in a whole new package, which the Bush administration called the Global War on Terror. Even though we were only originally after a handful of people in a camp in Afghanistan, it suddenly became the Global War on Terror. And Islam, rather than communism, became the existential threat to our way of life, at least to those politicians who were willing to go down this road. And they were willing to go down this road because history says this is a very effective road to go down. Just as, I like to try to give some solid examples from recent history. So let's go quickly through what became known as the Ground Zero Mosque controversy. And I'm well aware that the term itself, Ground Zero Mosque, is completely wrong because it was nowhere near Ground Zero, and it was a community center, not a mosque. But I want to show you a little chart I came across. You're not going to be able to see this in any detail way in the back, but what you want to look at is just the swoop, this chart. What this is coverage of newspaper articles about the Ground Zero Mosque controversy from May through December of last year when it became so controversial. And right here in the middle is August, September. This is where the elections were. Remember we had elections last year? Story just goes away after the elections, but look at the peak here. About the community center, Park 51, appeared in the New York Times in December of 2009. And it didn't receive much attention. It was just an article in the local news because it was local to New York City and it was working its way through the city council and the permitting process. What attention it did get was mostly positive early on. Even Fox News, Laura Ingraham had on Abdul Rauf's wife, Daisy Khan, and Laura Ingraham, a host of an otherwise right-wing show, which later attacked the mosque, said this: I can't find many people who really have a problem with it. I like what you're trying to do. Well, in May, and again, this is last year, an election year to elect all of Congress and a third of the Senate. I'm not really well known, but kind of connected to the rabid right-wing anti-Muslim blogger by the name of Pamela Geller, started picking up on the story and just hammering away on her blog. And the only media outlet to kind of pick up from her rhetoric was the New York Post, owned by Rupert Murdoch, who also owns Fox News. The story still didn't go much further than that. Right-wing blogs hammering away on this dangerous mosque being built in downtown New York City. But this spike right here in these news stories happened only when national political figures started to talk about the story. When Newt Gingrich, presidential candidate, Rudy Giuliani, Tim Pawlenty, Peter King, and Sarah Palin all started to weigh in on it. Their advisors looking for something to drive a wedge during the elections. Now we're getting up into summertime and the elections are really gearing up. And rather than talk about the economic crisis facing this country, they found this wedge issue, this politics of paranoia, the politics of fear. Newt Gingrich compared at the time Islam to Nazism and Japanese imperialism, called the mosque a radical Islamist provocation. hadn't even gotten any coverage in the news. How could it be a provocation? Rudy Giuliani called it a desecration. And Sarah Palin, you may remember this was a rather famous tweet on her part, begged peaceful Muslims to repudiate the mosque. And from there, the story snowballed to the point that 35 mosque building projects around this country came under fire at local political levels. It's a striking example of this politics of fear at work. Because I don't think in these 35 communities around this country, people really have an understanding of what Islam is about. If they did, if they could have listened to some of our speakers, they certainly wouldn't have been out protesting. It was because they had been led there. They had been made afraid of the others. And it became very successful. So, again, this is just a thumbnail sketch. And the important thing to remember is that this is long and entrenched in American political history. So how do you respond to something like this? How do we respond to the current Islamophobia, as we're terming it, which is still the politics of paranoia and the politics of fear? There is no easy answer to that. There is no easy answer, first of all, because this is so deeply ingrained in American politics. People are so easily misled, diverted from the real issues of the times that we are trying to struggle with, all of us, in our own ways. And so I might suggest that one way to think about this might be that when something like the Ground Zero Mosque controversy presents itself, that the response might not be, and I give President Obama credit for coming out and talking about the freedom of religion in this country. And people affiliated with the proposed community center saying we have a right to do this, and defending Islam as a religion of peace. But maybe the better answer might be, why are you asking this question? Why are you asking this question? Here we are in the midst of the deepest economic crisis this country has seen in 75 years, and permits in downtown New York City for a community center. We know you're trying to divert attention from the real issues because you don't have the answers. And why not ask the media outlets that respond to this garbage, why are you reporting this? This is not a story. This is not a story. The story is the suffering of millions of people in this country who have lost their jobs. The story is the millions of people in this country who are suffering because they have lost their homes. The story is the millions of people in this country who are suffering because they have lost their health care. The story is the thousands of U.S. soldiers who have died in foreign wars. There's all kinds of stories. Those are the real issues we need to be asking the media. Why are you reporting this? We need to be asking the politicians, why are you talking about a mosque in New York City or in Oklahoma City or in Temecula, California? Those aren't the issues that confront us. And as we go forward and try to forge ways to ask these questions, we have to do it together. We have to combine forces together so that your organizations join the labor unions in asking these questions, and the labor unions join your organizations in asking these questions. Because deep down, we all know what the real issues are that we have to confront in this country, because we are all affected by it. And in the end, of course, we're all in this together. Thank you.